Geek Out! Hey, and welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And we've got, another interview. We have interviews every week. Come on.
We are an interview podcast now, guys. Get used to it.
Yeah, it's totally awesome, right? And this week is a friend of me and Jake's, and he's here to promote his Kickstarter, so let's let him talk about it. And joining us this week, we've got friend of the show and friend of ours, Ryan Nichols. Ryan has been working, various animation studios out in Los Angeles lately, and he's launching his Kickstarter, the Delta Anthology, which you can currently see and support. It runs until July 27th, so definitely get on that, especially for those early bird perks, which are at the time of this posting currently available. It's a full-on comic work, and true to its name, it's an anthology of different stories that make up this fictional world. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here.
So you've been working on this book for a long time. Like, you've put in God knows how many man hours, God knows how much of your own finances into it. How did this all come about?
Well, I mean, you know me personally, Sam, so I'm a bit of a research nut, and so that's where a lot of my ideas actually come from. Is I'll find out about something interesting, and then that leans into me kind of researching, trying to learn more, and then ideas just kind of grow and grow. And it was actually when I was 15 years old, there was a book that's somewhat popular in like theology circles called A History of God. And it just kind of goes through talking about how all of these different religions have similar stories and just like names are changed and everything like that. And so then that started me down the path of just kind of looking into different religious characters. And the person that kept coming to the forefront for me was Solomon. And, Solomon is in like different kinds of books and also in 1001 Arabian Nights. A lot of people miss out on that. But
he's one of the lesser known knights.
Yes, exactly. But I got really interested in that character, and so then I kind of came up with my own version of Solomon and started to build a world for him. And then by the time that I was adding stories and trying to figure out, who's this person? Who's this person? It just kind of grew and grew and took control of itself. And, and just learning the different periods of that world, then I had different projects almost, and they all make one larger story, and so Delta is the end result of seeing how a world is created almost on accident, and then how that can develop by the actions and the conflicts of the characters.
So it was almost a meta narrative of your own tale of kind of coming up with these seemingly desperate stories.
Absolutely. Nobody likes to talk about a metaphor, but like part of what Delta is for me is a representation of the creative process.
Now, how did you link up with all these artists?
I love cartoons and I absolutely adore art. So just being online, websites like DeviantArt was huge in connecting me with these people. And one of those things I find, if you're passionate about your idea and you're able to communicate it to an artist, they can, put that into a workable form, something in front of you that gets other people excited about the idea. So I was very fortunate. One of the first artists I started working with is the main artist for the book, Kevin Castanero. And he was still in high school, actually, when I reached out to him. Same time that I met Jeff Stokely, who did, Six Gun Gorilla, and he did The Spire, but he did the first pagan short that's in, the last pagan short that's in this book, the first one that was completed chronologically. And I met both of those guys. They're best friends, and because they gave me clean, professional work that made people excited, it made it easier for me to reach out to other artists because they saw things that looked legitimate. So
you've got a lot of, for those of you who haven't seen the Kickstarter page yet, there are a lot of varied stories here. You've got the kind of like the Western stories, you've got the medieval stories, you've got the weird, just kind of like out there almost horror stories. what were some of your influences really going into this? You had kind of like mentioned a lot of like animation influences, but yeah, what are some of your more specific influences with Delta?
For one thing, just childhood play was a huge part of it. You think about when we were all kids and you're playing with action figures. I had my favorite action figure. One of them was Robin from Batman the Animated Series. Like he came with a little hang glider. I played with that thing all the time because he could fit into everything. He wasn't like awkward size for any other action figures, but I played with him with everything. And so that character would be in these different kind of settings. Like if I was playing with my brother with his Shaquille O'Neal toys that weren't really action figures, like, Robin was in the story. My sister would have, these different Barbies. We'd have, like Happy Meal toys, whatever. Robin was always there. And so it was kind of interesting for me to think about how you could take the same character and how they would change in different settings, but also how they would change those settings. But to answer your question directly, you've heard me talk about it passionately before. My favorite book has always been and will always be, I'm thinking, The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. And that book had such a huge influence on me as a kid, growing up on like Jim Henson stuff, Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, Robert E. Howard, not always super kid friendly, but I loved all of Robert E. Howard's stuff, and additionally the Never Ending Story.
Oh, of course,
yeah. I got something totally different from watching the Never Ending Story, and the thing that even as a kid I walked away with was feeling like we are all part of the Never Ending Story. In that, whenever you read or you experience it, then that story lives on and it becomes part of your story.
Well, and I think as a meta-narrative towards life, I think life is infinitely more interesting once you realize you're not the main character in it.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%. And that's part of what made the world of Delta continue to grow, is, again, being a research nut. I'm not just researching topics or science or, the weird things you see me post on Facebook. Like, I have to know everything about my characters. So not even just the main character and the villain. Villains are always my favorites, by the way. I have to know everything about like the tertiary characters, and when you get into kind of that type of research, then that's where I find new stories, and the world grows, and of course all of that influences and develops and changes what happens for your main characters. So it all relates back to the same thing.
In terms
I'm
of
obsessed.
in terms of like the actual like back matter, the actual special features for the Delta Anthology, can we expect some of those like character sketches and character notes that you have as part of the back matter?
Oh, absolutely. There's different levels of the rewards that include like behind the scenes content, and in the behind the scenes content, you'll see all kinds of notes and the process that the artists go through. I save thumbnails. I save pencil sketches. In some cases, if they use the blue lines or reds for thumbnails, whatever, I saved everything. And beyond that, there's also certain levels that include a character Bible, and the character Bible will give you an even larger peek into the world. So you'll see other characters that would come out in the follow-up stories, or just learn more about the characters that exist within it themselves. So I know, Sam, you've gotten to read Delta.
Yeah, it's been like, I want to say like I first thumbed through, and you hadn't gotten all the finished pages at that point. Like it's been at least 2 or 3 years since you first showed me a work print copy of this. Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned that you had kind of come up with this idea when you were 15. Obviously, you're not 15 anymore.
Right.
He's 16.
And a half.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, yeah, you can finally drive licensed. But the
like an almost an R-rated movie.
Yeah. It depends on some theaters we might be able to sneak you in, but the Geek Out doesn't condone sneaking in underage minors into R-rated films, or do we? Yeah. When did you actually really start putting pencil to paper with this thing? Like, when did you really start to see like tangible evidence of Delta coming together?
I was almost going, I hate to say it, I was almost going that Kafka method of just like making work for myself for a while. And it wasn't until probably 3 years ago that I started to really approach this seriously. So as opposed to, being kind of a professional hobbyist who was doing martial arts training and working in the comic shop, which is where I met you all guys, but being a professional writer, like I always felt like that was my calling, but I had been trained since being a kid to learn that I had to retire from something else or do something stable. And, I just decided to take the leap. And after taking the leap, things really started to kind of click together. And that's what it takes in order to make progress. It sounds ridiculous to people who aren't as passionate about the work, but I would go for a week just, eating the occasional cheap tacos and some ramen noodles, whatever, and put that money towards artwork. And that costs money. It's expensive, but it was worthwhile for me, and it fed me in a way better than like actual food could.
It fed your soul.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
That was one of the things I think when Sam and I first met you, Ryan. I think you were like in the middle of that leap, like you were starting to do that, and that was what I think
certainly
really
the book. Yeah.
That was what really kind of drew us to you, because it was kind of it's infectious, and it was like inspiring to talk to you about that. Because I think the first time we really hung out with you, you were sleeping on our floor in at New York Comic Con,
we had
right?
a hotel.
Yeah, we had a hotel, and you crashed with us, and then we ended up
Bowery.
just seeing you through the rest of the con, and like really, talking all things nerd through there.
I remember like we like the first time you had brought it was like a samurai sword umbrella.
Yes.
And I remember you kind of twirled it, and I like blocked it, and you were like, "You've had training," and I was like, "I have." Like that martial
that
arts,
always means that we can be friends.
Yeah, as long as we have that mutual martial arts background.
You've had training. I can see like the bad dubbing, Yes, I have.
I finally showed Jake Enter the Dragon, and now he can't watch Bloodsport anymore.
Yeah, well, that was a mistake. We watched Bloodsport. I'm my like martial arts, like watching movies is like very new to all of it. I'm like this like baby watching all these movies, but like I watched Bloodsport like for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and for some reason I don't know what there was real no like anniversary for it, but I was like, hey Sam, let's drink a couple beers and watch Bloodsport, and so we did, but we got like like Belgian beer, because it's figured let's keep it the tradition with JCVD.
Yeah, muscles from Brussels.
Yeah, and we were watching it, and I'm thinking like, hey, this movie, and Sam's like, God damn, this martial arts is so sloppy in this movie. And then he was like, well, let's watch Enter the Dragon, and I had never seen all of Enter the Dragon before, and so we watched it afterwards, and I was like, I can't watch Bloodsport like the same again. You know what I mean? But
oh, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and assume that in keeping in tradition with Jean-Claude Van Damme, you were also stretching the entire time.
Oh, yeah. We were trying to do the splits for like an hour and a half, and it was just painful. And then at the end, we went outside, and I tied Sam to a tree, and we had him do the splits with a pulley. So.
Yeah, my nuts still haven't recovered yet.
Just in case you do the splits and punch somebody in the balls, just in case.
So why the Kickstarter with this then? Why you say as much in the Kickstarter page, but for anyone who doesn't read the Kickstarter page, the book in some form and digitally is for all intents and purposes done. But what made you want to like decide like, hey, I want to take this to the next level. I want to, forget Comixology Submit. I want to make physical copies of this thing.
I actually did a couple of things through Comixology previously, and they were great. I love those guys. But I really wanted to have something tangible, physical, to put on a bookshelf. I was a part of another Kickstarter project last year, the Death Saves Anthology, for like tabletop gaming nerds. But
baby.
As a result of being in that project, I got physical books. And then with the physical books, I was doing some signings. I got to speak at a couple of conventions. I spoke at Kamikaze last year. And it was just a totally different experience. Like, I love digital media, but most people would prefer just to have something that you can, I don't know, hit somebody with. And I wanted to provide those blunt objects.
Yeah, those tools to smack around.
So you're providing hardcovers then.
If we get to that level.
That's the first stretch goal.
That's right.
Exactly.
You should name the first, and you. I didn't go through quite all the perks, but you should name the first perk where the backer gets a physical copy. Let's get physical.
I don't remember what exactly I put. It's like something like all the better to hit you with.
Yeah.
So,
Keeping with the theme.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you were talking about how much art influences you, and one of my favorite things when I'm scrolling through Facebook every day is the different like animated GIFs you post.
Oh, the process work, like Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, and all the different anime and whatnot. It's just that's just something always cool to see because so much again. I don't know that much about anime too. Like I'm very kind of new to watching different animes and just seeing Akira for the first time this year. And so it was actually really cool. It was really cool because Chris here, he works at a theater that played it on the big screen. A couple of weeks ago now, or like a month ago. A couple months ago. And that was like that was only the second time I had seen it, and that was like the coolest freaking thing in the world. Like it was just outstanding.
Akira is kind of a weird thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. They invented new colors to animate that. It's ridiculous the amount of work and craftsmanship that went into that. But I read Akira before I watched it, and like Akira's not even really in the movie, so it was kind of a weird process. For me to see it, so you should definitely read it if you have not read it, Jake.
Yeah, I have the first book. Like I'm working through that. Yeah, I know. That's the plan. That is the plan. But I am like the slowest at everything right now. So that's that. I'm in between reading Akira and all the Tarzan books. That's.
Oh yes.
That's,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
And you're still sore from those 6 push-ups or 10 push-ups that you did while you were watching
10 push-ups while
Hulk.
watching the Incredible Hulk TV series. Because by the end of it, I'm going to look like Lou Ferrigno. 10 push-ups every single episode.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to be well trained next time you see me.
Yeah. We'll teach him Jeet Kune Do.
Well, funny, yeah. I've been doing martial arts forever, which like Sam and I talked about a little bit. And one of the things that I used to do, in being obsessed with Bruce Lee, which I am, we can talk about that whenever you want.
Please,
but,
God, yes.
I used to put on like a cartoon show. Everything's cartoons with me. I'll just say that first. I used to put on a cartoon show, and then I'd be like, okay, well, this episode is on. I'm going to do push-ups for this episode. And then, like, I'd put on another episode, and I'd do, like, kicks or punches or use the ab wheel or whatever. And so, like, I never really worked out. I just kind of played around while I was watching cartoons.
Yeah.
And
That's the plan.
We'll get back to that Bruce Lee in a second, I swear to Christ. But first things first, what's your favorite anime?
My favorite anime?
There's definitely an anime influence in Delta.
Oh, yeah. My answer to that question would probably change based on my mood, but I can tell you, like, unequivocally, my favorite anime character is Spike Spiegel. Oh. But that's partially because he's a combination of my second favorite anime character, who's Lupin the Third, and Bruce Lee. So
Spike Spiegel,
I mean, that's
from,
kind of a winning combination for me.
Yeah, Spiegel being from Cowboy Bebop. For those of you at home that don't, pretty awesome. Now, what do you think is Bruce Lee's greatest fight on film?
I mean, I like the infight in Game of Death because you actually see
the uncut version
process.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You see the process of strategy happening a little bit more than you see in a lot of fight scenes. But you know the story about the Chuck Norris fight?
Oh, in Return of the Dragon, or
yeah.
What's the story there?
So apparently, if this story is true, Bruce Lee may have accidentally tagged Chuck Norris a little bit more than he was supposed to, and Chuck Norris got upset. And there's a point when you're watching the film that the choreography it slows down and it looks really sloppy. And Chuck Norris is throwing a few techniques, and Bruce Lee just kind of dances away. But if the story is true, it's because Chuck Norris was actually trying to hit Bruce Lee.
And still,
which I've never. I told you I love research. I've never researched that one because I don't want to find out the truth. I just like to accept the story as it was told to me. So don't ruin it for me, Sam.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sam's like, well, actually, it's because
Now just bring that up.
In the fall of 1972. No, my
Chuck Norris had a cold.
Yeah, my very limited thing with Bruce Lee is that I grew up watching the Green Hornet series, and so I love seeing him as Kato. Like he's one of those characters that he became so popular with Kato and defined that character so much that they changed the backstory of Kato to fit Bruce Lee. Like the Kato we know now was basically just Bruce Lee, which is astounding. Like when you really stop and think about that.
It's kind of like what happened with Sean Connery and Bond.
Yeah, that'd be like if Adam West defined Batman so much that they just changed it to Batman. You know what I mean? Like back then, and
I have to bring this up because you went from Green Hornet and Kato to Adam West Batman. Did you watch the episodes with them together?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. The child, the old friend, whatever, stuff like that. But it's also funny that like Bruce Lee fights Burt Ward and they come to a draw, and it's just like, okay, that's how we know this is some fiction shit right here. But well, supposedly they were like friends too, and like they trained together and fought and all that kind of stuff. But it's still mind blowing to watch like a Green Hornet episode and see all these guys doing like 1960s stunt fighting. And then he comes in, and it looks like he's from 2015. Like the way he's fighting, and it's so cool.
They had to slow him down too.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, where it's just he's so fast, and it's just incredible.
They had to slow him down in his own films. He was moving too fast for cameras at the time to capture. You can see some of the footage with him and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar like really getting into it in their native speeds, and they're like, "We can't make out what you're doing. You have to slow down."
Right.
Though I think that it's between the Game of Death finale uncut or the finale of the Chinese Connection where he literally just wipes out a dojo all by himself. But no, you're right. Like in Game of Death, it really is kind of like you see basically Jeet Kune Do against like a Eskrima, Jiu-Jitsu, and then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar himself uses Jeet Kune Do, so they're evenly matched. Like that's...
I was just going to say, back to the Chinese Connection, did you pick out Jackie Chan in that scene?
I can never pick him out in the Chinese Connection. I can pick him out in Enter the Dragon because
that was easier.
Because he takes the time to stop and snap his neck. I'm like, there he is.
And the guy who gets kicked out. I mean, like kicked through the paper wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Jackie Chan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the way that it works is Bruce Lee was like, okay, well, I need to find somebody who's willing to go through this wall for me to do this stunt. And then Jackie Chan's like, oh, why don't you just use me? And he was like, okay, well, how do you want to do this? Like, I'm supposed to kick and you've got to go through the wall. And he's like, well, why don't we just do it? Like, just kick me through the wall. And that's what happened.
And of course, Bruce Lee being so powerful that he can punch a man from 1 inch away and send him flying across a room. God, this tangent could go on forever, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you one last thing. This is going to sound absolutely crazy, but on my bucket list, like there's a group of martial artists that I absolutely love and respect. I want one of them to break my nose before I die.
Have you the ultimate signature?
Yeah.
Can I get your autograph right here in the middle of my face?
Right the schnoz.
Yep.
So what are some of
Have I broken my nose before? Yes, multiple times.
You've got a boxer's nose a bit. Yeah. What could you again, for anyone who hasn't read the Kickstarter page, could you go over some of the Kickstarter perks that come along with the Delta Anthology?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, there's digital and physical rewards, like digital copies of the book. There's wallpapers, avatars, all that kind of stuff on the digital side, as well as copies of the character Bible, like I mentioned, behind-the-scenes content. On the physical side of things, you can get copies of the book. You can get art cards that'll be done by various artists from the book. Kevin, I'm sure, will have a large hand in that. There's creative consultation sessions with myself or with Kevin or with Ander, who was the primary colorist for the book. Additionally, there's levels where I will write script of one of your characters for a short. If you go to the higher tiers, you could even have yourself or your character be included in a short in this book, which is kind of a fun opportunity. But one of the things I'm very excited about is the voting system. So at different levels, backers will be awarded votes as well, rewarded, because it's not animal. But anyway, they'll be rewarded votes, and those votes will be used after the campaign is completed to help choose what Kevin and I continue forward. So I was talking about the aspect of story in general, and there's a lot of different characters. Excuse me. There's a lot of different characters that you see, and a lot of different stories that can be carried further beyond the shorts. And so even though these characters are invested in the conflict that is in front of them, there's another creative conflict that's happening that the audience is engaged in. And the audience will choose who gets to carry through their story and which ones kind of fade into obscurity. So the lives and the journeys of the characters are in the hands of the backers as well.
It's like choose your own adventure on a macro level.
Exactly.
Now, you were saying on the Kickstarter page we can expect the book itself, or at least some of the perks, to kind of come into play like in December, by the year's end.
Absolutely, yeah. Since the book is already done, essentially once those funds transfer from Kickstarter, I'll be ordering the book as soon as possible and just try to get those to people. You know, maybe good holiday present.
There you go.
Have a friend who likes to read the funny books.
Make a good, coffee table. Impress the ladies. Just put it on. It's not the actual coffee table. You put it on your coffee table. But if you wanted a stretch goal where it was actually a coffee table, I would totally be about that too.
Hardcover,
Yeah.
coffee table.
Coffee table size.
Now, I feel like this. I feel because you live an interesting life, Mr. Nichols. I feel like kind of go into what you've been doing since, because you've been in Los Angeles a year and a half, almost 2 years now.
Year and a half, yes, sir.
Yeah, what you been up to since you've been out there? You were mentioning some sort of.
My goodness. When I first moved out here, I was actually hired by a company that ghostwrites novels, and that was an interesting experience. I wrote a couple of books for them. Obviously I can't get into what all it was, but I can tell you that I had a moment where I realized, I really can write whatever I need to, where I was writing a story from a 19-year-old girl's perspective, and it's a lot about Instagram. And I had to write I didn't have to, but the course of the story took me to write a full paragraph describing her fiance's swimmer's V body in the morning.
So which Kardashian autobiography was this?
Please say Courtney. Please say Courtney.
They like basketball players.
Yeah. That's right.
But that paragraph ended with #hot HAWT. And I was like, what is happening in my life right now? So, in addition to that, as you mentioned, I've been in and out of animation studios, pitching different content to them. Started talking to a new studio actually yesterday. They're supposed to message me tonight about a couple things, so we'll see how that goes. And I worked on a low-budget horror film for China. So that was an interesting experience. I was initially brought in
so which
to advise...
Kardashian autobiography was that?
I was initially brought in to advise on script and story, and they were really happy with my contributions. So, these low-budget things, there's a lot of upward mobility. And so then I was promoted to being art director and made more contributions. It was my first feature-length experience, and so I'm just trying to do whatever I can to not mess it up. And I didn't know I was doing more work than I had to, but it worked out because they were unhappy with their assistant director and then happy with me, so they actually removed him, and then I was moved up to assistant director. So my first feature-length credit on IMDb is for an assistant director position.
Nice.
So it was a really great experience. Actually, the person who filmed my Kickstarter video was the cinematographer from that movie. Shout out to Paul Houston. He's awesome.
And for anyone who, I'm encouraging everyone at home to, actually look at that Kickstarter video because without going into specifics, congratulations on the happy news.
Thank you, sir. Yes. We can do specifics. I'm engaged now. I'm
Hashtag
a
hot.
sly person. What's that?
I said hashtag hot.
Yeah. So I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of share the moment with Tram, my significant other, my fiancée now, my betrothed.
Your
Yes.
bae.
I can't go that far. Although I got to be honest, I did in the book. I did in that book. I wanted to use hashtag Beowulf. But
Oh my God, it's genius.
My God, yeah.
That's like the next MTV show.
We need
Beowulf.
God, man, that's genius.
That goes right there hand in hand with the TV series Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got that. You got Teen Wolf, and you got Beowulf.
Yeah.
Right afterwards. Perfect.
But yeah, so congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations on the engagement. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
But do you have any other upcoming projects you can kind of hint at, or are you NDA'd up the wazoo?
My hands are tied a little bit on a couple of things, but because I'm actually transitioning between studios that I'm talking to on a couple of these animation things, I can speak about them a bit because I don't have a new NDA at the moment. So two of the things that I'm really focused on pitching right now, one of them is called People Show, and it focuses on the circus freaks, like in the junior circus, who are kind of dealing with their own awkwardness and everything, and they feel a little uncomfortable, but then empowered by their differences.
You had kind of called it the Bible, or was that more the character guide?
Oh no, yeah, that's one of the tools that you'll use. So typically I go from a one sheet, which is just a single page that pitches the concept, shows some of the art style and everything, and some quick episode rundowns. And if somebody's interested in the one sheet, then you'll give them the longer pitch, where you'll use the pitch Bible to kind of give yourself talking points and extra art to go through. So yeah, what I had sent you before was the actual pitch Bible that I showed to the studio that I was last speaking to.
How's that been going, or are you kind of tied in terms of talking how that's been going?
It's going well. What wound up happening, because last year, actually in December, I went into their office and I pitched them 5 different 6-minute shorts. And they were interested in what I had going on in those. And they're like, okay, we'll take these 2, develop them as a full series, and bring them back to us. And I think they're mostly used to listening to shorts pitches. So when I went and I pitched them a full series, and again, I'm very detail-oriented, I know I overwhelmed them. So, yeah, basically all I'm doing at this point is kind of scaling back, because if somebody goes to a restaurant, they don't want to sit down and get an ingredient list. They just want you to put the dish on the table. And I tried to make sure that they saw all of the pieces of the machine, and it was just too much. So I have to scale that back and then repitch that. The other thing that I think I mentioned to you, but I don't think you saw, was Temp.
Yeah, I didn't actually see any stuff there.
Okay, well, Temp, I feel like you guys would be into. It takes place in a world that all of the stuff that we love exists, like superheroes, all the super science and fantasy and everything. All of that stuff exists. And Ben Hinch, who's the main character, he went to the premier university for villainy, but he dropped out because he wasn't that interested in going into the family business, and so he just works for a temp agency. He was like, oh, that's great. I can kind of slack off and just hang out with my friends. But the temp agency, let's say I know there's Superman fans in the room over there. So let's say Superman wants to take a day off to, go hang out with Lois Lane or whatever. He'll call up the temp agency. They'll send somebody over with like an approximately appropriate power set or technology to support them, and they kind of fill in for him. And so Ben works for an agency like that. But, he runs his mouth a lot. And I think we can all acknowledge superheroes. Like one of the episodes is kind of like a Super Sentai tropes. Like I deal with different tropes in all of them. So there's like a Super Sentai one, thing that deals with like team super soldiers. You can imagine like G.I. Joe kind of thing. But in a lot of these, he's a lazy guy. It's one of the things, like if you want to find the shortest path to a place, you ask the guy with one leg. Like if you want to figure out how to beat a villain quickly, you should ask like a lazy superhero. They're not going to try to do a long drawn out battle or whatever. And so yeah, Ben gets in trouble because he does these things without the flair that you would expect a superhero to, because he just wants to get stuff done so he can go home and watch mixed martial monsters like fight each other.
That's cool, man. How have you developed like the full-on Bible and stuff for that as well, or like?
There's the one sheet. I do have the Bible for that as well. Actually, I do have all the art for that. I had to go through mental inventory. I do too many things. But yeah, I have the Bible for that as well, and so that's one of the other things that I'm speaking to this new group of people about. Sweet. Because the old group of people, it was a little bit out of their demographic.
Okay. Well, looking forward to it, man. Now, something that as a listener of the show, what are you currently geeking out over?
What am I? What?
What are you geeking out? What are you currently geeking out over, man?
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness, the kid just walked in. Can you grab him, hon? Sorry. My Hero Academia, like, I'm going back to anime. Sorry, Jake.
No, it's an education. I need it.
Yes. It's interesting to me because it's like the superhero version of Naruto. Almost. Like, Naruto didn't... Naruto has gone on for a very long time. That's what I will say. And My Hero still feels new. And they've got, like I said, villains are always my favorite. There's some really interesting characters in there. But I am surprised how often My Hero Academia like plucks at my heartstrings. Like you get the same kind of emotional investment that I would get from. Are you familiar with Hajime no Ippo? Like Fighting Spirits, it's that famous like boxing anime manga.
No, I need to look into
it.
It's a boxing manga. I definitely need to look into it.
It's one of the longest running ones. It's awesome.
One of my favorite like fighting anime and manga is Fist of the North Star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's fair to assume.
But yeah,
I wonder why.
Yeah. You're already dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, because you mentioned that you would like include Shaq in random stories to make things less basketball but more Shaq. Did you play a lot of Shaq Fu growing up?
I grew up in a Nintendo household, sir.
I have Shaq Fu on the Super Nintendo. I'll have you know.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. I guess that was like an intentional blind spot for me. I did play Shaq Fu. Do you guys remember Sega TV?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So my best friend growing up, he had Sega TV, so I would go and play all these games at his house and on Sega. And so Shaq Fu was one of the Sega TV games. So I played that for like the 2 weeks that it was on Sega TV, and then they switched it, and I didn't feel compelled to, dip back into that well.
Yeah, you had Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City to make up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you so you're always, even now, I assume you're Team Nintendo?
I'm definitely a Sony boy now.
Oh. Was it Metal Gear and Castlevania that won you over?
Yes, I mean Metal Gear, Castlevania, Devil May Cry.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy Tekken, and that was what you had to play Final Fantasy on for a while too. So they just continued with what I was already playing, Resident Evil, and Resident Evil obviously is branched out as well now, but.
They're supposed to bring it back to the horror for Resident Evil 7. That's all, at least according to E3. It's supposed to go back.
Did you watch that trailer?
I haven't seen the trailer yet. I hear it's a lot like Silent Hills.
Again, I'm excited about the trailer for Resident Evil 7 because even though I enjoyed playing 5, it didn't feel like a Resident Evil game to me.
Right. Resident Evil 5 is a great game. It's just not a great Resident Evil game.
Right. Because Resident Evil, for me, has always been about survival. Especially when you're playing the first couple of games, you can't just save whenever you want to. You have to use an item.
Well, and even 4, I think the
right.
4 is perfectly epitomized by that opening fight in the village where you're just trying to, scramble from one house to the next, conserving your ammo and everything. For me, that is the peak, and this is going to be controversial in some circles. You're like, "Whoa, why not Resident Evil 2, or why not Code Veronica?" No, for me, the opening of 4 is the epitome of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm not going to argue that. That's okay.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, but yeah. So, is there any last things you want to kind of tease about or talk about? The Delta Anthology before you sign off.
I definitely want to invite people to give it an opportunity. I think that there is a story for most audiences. It's hard to say there's a story for everyone, but it covers a lot of different bases. There's supernatural western, sword and sorcery, rough knuckle cyberpunk stuff, post-apocalyptic sword and sorcery. There's a short that pushes a little bit towards higher fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, and then there's ninja. So if you're into good art or interesting stories or any of those genres, please at least just check out the video. Even if you just appreciate the art or the video, share it or back it. I mean, I'm okay if you want to back it. So.
And again, he's right. There is a whole world of stories out there. Just about every geeky genre gets covered. Not necessarily in everybody's wheelhouse, but there is guaranteed to be something for everyone. It just won't necessarily be the same one thing for everyone. So, and there's multiple things. It's awesome. And it's been really cool watching this over the I guess the 2 or 3 years where I've actually seen the whole, I guess not, I haven't been looking over your shoulder for the past 2 to 3 years, but
right.
But seeing the process kind of fill in over these, every now and again you'll be like, "Hey man, check out, I just got these pages in," and I'd be like, "Holy shit, this looks really good," yeah. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's been really cool, and thank you for kind of allowing me to kind of peek. And yeah, like Jake was saying, it's certainly been an inspiration watching you kind of fuel that creative fire, and not letting that burn out, because that, I think that's why I keep a blog. I think that's why I do the big movie reviews, because I want to say something. And it's really cool that you've got this platform where you can take all these it's really it's like a dream team story. You've scratched every single geeky creative itch in one package, more or less.
Oh, thank you.
So it's really cool to see that all coalesce.
Awesome. I will give one more heads up to your listeners, though, because it is not necessarily addressed in the book. I mean, it's there, but I didn't make it completely obvious. There are some characters that you will see repeated. So they are not called the same thing. They might look a little bit different, but I would invite you to try to figure out who those characters are. Like I said, that animated series Robin figure that popped up in different scenarios. Try to figure out which characters those are.
That's a good little dangler.
Deal.
But yeah, again, the Delta Anthology Kickstarter, the link is in the description, and you can totally, you've got until July 27th. So why not? Why not jump on those early bird specials? Jump on, just every, check help this thing see the physical light of day, because it like I said, there is something for everyone. So yeah, Ryan, it's always good talking story or just talking with you in general. So yeah,
likewise.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate you being professional, Sam. I don't know why Jake took his shirt off, but
I wanted to show you how jacked I'm getting. I'm only on episode 2 of the Incredible Hulk series, and I'm already developing
he's still
pecs.
doing push-ups.
Yeah,
right now.
I'm already developing. They're like, I'm turning green. That's how jacked I'm
We
getting.
had to develop a special microphone that would just follow
Yeah,
him
that's
as
right.
we go. I don't know why we didn't get a headset. That just makes more sense. But
yeah.
it's a special stand that follows him as he's
man.
bobbing up and down.
I've been inspired by Ryan. I'm going to become like a bodybuilder. I'm taking that leap.
Just watch all of Kung Fu.
Yeah, that's right. So next time I see Ryan, he can do a move, and I'll be able to block it.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I've
Don't
watched
tell
the
me that.
Incredible
I'll test it.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be like, it's okay. I've watched the Incredible Hulk series and the Green Hornet.
Yeah, it was so cool because like we were sitting in this hotel room and you kind of like did like a kind of a play swing and I blocked it and you're like, oh yeah, and you did like a real swing and I blocked that too and you're just like, you've had training. like you knew. And I was like, I have. Yeah, but yeah, thank you again, Ryan. Thanks for coming on the show. To everyone at home, check out that Kickstarter. Go ahead and give it your support and spread the good word. All right, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
It's always a fun time talking to Ryan.
It is. Yeah, I always liked whenever he would like pop up in the comic shop. You know,
he
just
was
randomly out of nowhere.
Yeah,
because I thought he was on the other side of the country, and
Yeah.
he'd turn around and he's there, and it was always great to talk to him about just anything, because he has this with his book, this vast knowledge of all things.
Yeah, and he would always. I mean, he's a research nut like myself, though. I think he's even more process oriented than I am. But it was always cool, like hanging out with him at like bars at like New York or something, like sitting in like Beer Authority, talking about why characters are motivated, why they are. Like, who the fuck else can I talk about like ad nauseum about like what Iron Fist means, So, and it's cool to see him do his own stuff. It's and again, that really, I really have seen this book kind of come from like acorn to sapling, and it's a fun ride. You guys should totally, at the time that this thing posts, I'll have certainly backed it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ooh.
definitely.
Shots
definitely.
fired.
Yeah, shots received. Yeah, but yeah. So you guys saw like you guys each saw at least 2 movies. Since the
This
last
is true.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Together we saw Central Intelligence.
Together,
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes.
the ET first.
Yeah,
It was a weird moment we just had.
that's all right.
But no, a couple of the guys, as some of you listeners might remember, Jake and I used to work together at the bar as bounceurs.
Yeah, believe it or not, this rock hard body was a bouncer.
With all those push-ups.
That's right. I think it's up to 11 now.
Whew.
Look out,
Total?
Lou Ferrigno. Yes, total. Yeah, total.
Not
no, not every single time. That's insane. I just add 1 to each. So like in a couple days, I'll be at like 17.
Whoa. Whew. Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one night after work, the bouncers were talking. They were like, we should go see a movie. And I was like, well, Central Intelligence just came out. Let's go see that. And I was like, I know Jake would want to go. And, so I was like, threw Jake into the mass text. And I was like, hey, guys, we're going to go this time. I'm going to go buy tickets. Who wants to come? And we went and saw it at $5 movie day at Centerville Multiplex. And
Pretty packed too, and it was in the big theater.
Found out that Centerville Multiplex serves the new Ecto Cooler can, which I bought just for the sake of nostalgia. Like I had no interest in drinking it that night, but I was like, it's there. Who knows when it's going to go away? I mean, they'll probably keep it stocked at least until Ghostbusters comes out.
I was grocery shopping today, and the lady behind me in line, not that I like snoop on everybody's groceries, just the people in front of me and behind me,
right.
Got a bunch of boxes of Ecto Cooler.
Nice.
So they at least exist out on the home market too.
Yeah. Sweet. But so grabbed one, put it in my pocket, and drank it today just to since I'm already on this tangent about Ecto Cooler, drank it today. Tastes just like Ecto Cooler. Zach was put in his 2 cents and was like, "Oh, I was disappointed, underwhelmed," was what he said. Underwhelmed with the taste, and I was like, "Well, that's what it tasted like." People are nostalgic for the novelty of it, not because it tastes great. It's a citrusy sugar drink, although it has less sugar per serving than Tropicana apple juice. Yeah. Or not per serving, per volume, per like the 12-ounce can of Ecto Cooler had less than 12 ounces worth of Tropicana, or was it maybe Mott's apple juice?
There's an apple juice that has more sugar, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, sorry. It was a weird tangent that I got onto and I couldn't get off. Anyway, the movie was hilarious.
Yeah. No, it was funny. It was good.
The Rock is hilarious in it, and I don't know if this was just me reading more into it than I needed to, but like the entire time I was like, is this all just some kind of like weird fantasy of Kevin Hart's character? Because in the opening scene we see he's like he's rocking the Letterman's jacket in high school. He's like valedictorian,
giving a big speech at the pep rally.
Yeah, he's in charge of all the clubs. Like he's the star quarterback. He's this on the baseball team.
Hamlet. That's right. He has that great shot of him. Yeah.
Head of the theater club. And all this stuff. And then and then it has the scene that's in the trailers, with the Fat Rock, dancing in the shower, and then he gets thrown into the gymnasium where they're having the pep rally. And Kevin Hart's the only person that helps him cover himself up. Fast forward 10 years or 20 years later, because the 20-year high school reunion, Kevin Hart's an accountant, and he's upset at his life. He's like, I was supposed to go places and I never went anywhere, and I love being an accountant. I'm really good at it, but or actually no, he doesn't love it. He's just really good at it. That's what it is. But so like the setup to the story is that he's disappointed in his life. So I was like, is this just setting it up to be all like a fantasy? And like I was like, that kind of explains how cartoonish a lot of the action is.
He's ridiculously good with a gun on accident. Like he does that thing a lot where like he's trying to get rid of the gun, but he can shoot everybody. It doesn't kill anybody, but can shoots this pipe that goes off, and very kind of like classic comedy.
And the fact that they jump through the window and don't die
and land on the. Well, it's funny. As soon as they mention. He's like, I work outside, with the giant inflatable grill outside of my office, and I was like, that's how they're going to survive the jump, because we all knew that was coming. I got a totally boss plan that's going to blah blah blah. Might get us both killed. Cool?
No, not cool.
Cool.
No, I said not cool.
And then it goes off the thing.
And then like just the way certain shots were done, like it was a comedy, so like it doesn't have to make sense. But like there's a scene where The Rock is underneath a car working on it. Yeah. And like the camera's on Kevin Hart. He's just standing there talking, and without seeing The Rock move, he's suddenly just standing there next to him. And I was like, if they're just playing that for laughs, cool. I get it. It's a comedy, and it's not a serious. It's not a serious comedy. It's a farcical comedy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be grounded in real life. Yeah. But it also feels like they're setting it up to be just all in his head. Yeah. And then like I got distracted with that at one point, and like halfway through the movie I had to be like, no, shut up, brain.
So you think so one of the things you were thinking of, this is all just him sitting at his desk daydreaming about what he wished he could do.
Exactly. Like he gets like the friend request from Bob
That's
Stone.
Right, yeah. That's Bob Stone. Yeah.
But
Bob Stone, all the emojis.
Yeah. And then I was just like, did he have like a stroke? Mm-hmm. Is this a Jacob's Ladder thing?
Oh God, Jesus, that movie's so
how crazy is this movie trying to go? And I was like, by the time it got to like the psychiatrist scene where The Rock pretends to be the couple's therapist between Kevin Hart and his wife, I was like, okay, this more evidence that maybe it is, but like. Then when when it's revealed that it is just The Rock's character pretending to be the psychiatrist, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is not some weird dream. Yeah. Because like if it were, then this would just be like a North situation where he keeps seeing The Rock pop up, a la Bruce Willis in North. Yeah.
One of the things I do wish is that the movie like once The Rock shows up and the wheels start turning, the CIA stuff. I wish that they would have kind of got going quicker. They kind of do a lot of like the back and forth, who blah blah blah, and just kind of got because what we want to just see is like The Rock and Kevin Hart together with like having fun and like an action movie, and that happens. Like it hits all those check marks definitely. But I feel like they did a little bit too much of like, do we trust The Rock? Do we not trust The Rock? And then Kevin Hart, do we trust it? Because I feel like they do it like multiple times where they could have just had like that one big boom, get out of the way, and then just have fun the rest of the time.
Yeah, and like it got to a point near the end where like the deal is going down.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, there's no way for us to know whether or not The Rock is being real. Like there's no resolution for it. And like pretty much right before it took that, like hard left to be like completely, like there's no way for us to know. Like then spoilers.
Yeah.
Cover your ears.
Yeah.
Aaron Paul shows up.
Yeah.
And it's like he's not actually dead. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
The one character that can clear everything up.
I kind of was wishing, though, speaking of spoilers, I kind of wish it turned out The Rock was the bad guy the whole time.
I did too.
That would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like
I was
Doom,
like,
remember Doom?
Yeah. I was like, once
But
I
better than Doom.
Yeah. Once I came to terms with it being real, I was like, okay, it would be great if The Rock was actually like
because it
the
plays
black guy.
yeah,
but it can't be.
It plays so well into us being like, oh, this is where he's going to pretend to be the bad guy and save the day.
Mm-hmm.
And when Kevin Hart comes downstairs, it would have been so great if he's like, sorry, dude, this is just,
Yeah.
that,
Well,
I let that one bad day affect me in school. Like, you helped me out. And like Kevin Hart trying to bring him back, but like, because the Rock character bottles that in the entire movie.
He literally says it.
He keeps it bottled in his stomach, and Kevin Hart's like, that's not a fucking good idea. Like, that's going to come back to haunt you.
That sounds really unhealthy.
Yeah, but it's fun. I mean, look, I the main reason I went to see it is because I think The Rock is just super charming and charismatic and just awesome. And he's really great in the movie. He's actually a little kind of goofier and funnier than I thought he was going to be. I thought there was going to be, when he gets like to be jacked awesome Rock, that there was going to be this like he plays a goofball when he's at the beginning, when he meets when he sees Kevin Hart after the 20 years, but then like as soon as the CIA turn is revealed, that he's all game, like but he's still goofy, like having fun, like, hey, we're best friends, let's have a sleepover, all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of cool to see him play like a lot more comedic chops than I thought. That it was going to be kind of Kevin Hart was the funny guy, Rock was the straight guy, whereas really the opposite.
Yeah.
So
Kevin Hart was playing the straight man, just cranked
saying,
up to
shit
11
a lot, like
oh
shit.
That
was his thing.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted Central Intelligence to be.
It hit every single point that I was like hoping for when I saw the trailer, and like I was like, I went into it being like, okay, this is gonna be funny, but there's no way that it's gonna live up to the trailer, and then it did.
Yeah,
and I was like, fuck yeah,
it was funny.
Thank you, Rock.
It was good stuff.
What was the other movie you saw?
I saw The Conjuring 2.
Oh.
I loved the first Conjuring movie. I think it's one of the best horror movies in recent memory. And this movie does it well. And I will say, just full disclosure right off the bat, I still like the first one a little more. The second one's great, but it's really kind of the exact same thing. It's kind of cool at the beginning. You get to see the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, dealing with the Amityville Horror House stuff in the beginning. That's the and that stuff is disturbing, dude. Like they show she kind of goes into the mind of what's going on. And one of the things they kind of lace into this movie, which is cool that they kind of talk about in the first one, is there's this demonic presence kind of really chasing the Warrens. And there's this thing that she saw in the first movie that like almost like just scared her to death, and we get to really find out what she saw in this one is. It's the I don't know if you've seen any like the pictures in the trailers or whatever, but so spoilers, whatever. But there's like a demonic nun, and it's like perfectly 100% creepy. And I think one of the most unsettling parts of the movie deals with this painting that Patrick Wilson draws. He's like, I've had this vision. It's demonic nun. And Vera Farmiga, of course, comes back as well. She's fantastic. The chemistry between her and Patrick Wilson is just awesome. I will watch as many Conjuring movies as they make with these two. Like I really enjoy this. And they brought like fun back into the horror movies. Like you're allowed to have fun when you're watching it. I'm not saying it's comedic. There are some funny moments because they off-play the unsettling moments. But there's a moment with the painting where she goes, she has a vision. That's kind of her thing. She has the visions, and so she falls asleep, kind of like a Nightmare on Elm Street scenario. And she wakes up and the nun is following around. But then the lights go off and the painting is there. And you don't know if it's the painting or you don't know if it's like the nun. and like the way they play off of that is so wonderfully terrifying, and like you get that great, like it's so much fun when you're in a theater with a lot of people and you're all being scared at the same time, and you're all like part of this process of it being really scary, and then having that relief. And I said this back when the first Conjuring came out, and people were like, "Fuck you, you're insane." But I seriously, I still stand by it with the Conjuring 2. I would straight up cast, if DC came to me and they're like, make a Batman movie, I swear to God, I'd cast Patrick Wilson as Batman. Because,
Jake Bozick.
Yeah.
Make a Batman
they're like,
movie.
we've seen your stupid tweets on Twitter. Who would you cast as Batman? I was like, I would swear I would cast Patrick Wilson 100%.
Clearly, they haven't really looked at your tweets on Twitter because you tweet that all the time.
That's true. But I really would, because one of the things that I found in the first Conjuring, and especially in the second one, because I feel like Patrick Wilson has a bigger role in the second Conjuring film, is whenever he shows up, he is the guy that you feel safe when Patrick Wilson shows up on screen. So like something horrible is happening, these kids are being tortured, they just want to live a normal life, and fucking Patrick Wilson pops up, and he doesn't like beat up ghosts, or he doesn't like say something cool. He just has this like presence about him, because Ed Warren, the guy he's playing, one of the things when he did research listening to the actual tapes, they play the tapes at the end of the movie, and they're pretty fucking terrifying. But when he listened to the tapes of Ed Warren talking, most people when they do exorcisms or talking to demons in these tapes in the 70s, they would be like, "Demon, please enter this room," very kind of hammy. He would walk in and be like, "All right, listen, demon, what's going on? Talk to me here." And the demon's like, "Your name is Edward." He's like, "No, it's not. It's Ed." He's like, "Your father called you Ed." He's like, "No, he didn't. He called me Ed." "Your father called you Edward." He's like, "No, he didn't call me Ed. Look, you're not a psychiatrist. Let's go. What are you doing? What do you want with this girl? Come on, talk to me." And Patrick Wilson really plays that up in the second one. He also gets to sing in it, because we know Patrick Wilson has a wonderful singing voice, and it's a really kind of,
he was in Phantom of the Opera.
That's right, and Broadway and all that kind of stuff. And he,
I was about to say, if he was in the movie Phantom of the Opera, that doesn't prove that he has a good singing voice. They let Gerard Butler be in
This
that.
is true. But the dude can sing for real. But there's a great moment between this family that's being horribly tortured by this demon presence. The father has left them, so it's a single mother raising I think 3 kids, and they don't have any of their Elvis records anymore, and they love Elvis, and they're an English family, so they love the kind of Americana of Elvis. And so when the Warrens come to investigate, they're basically agents of the church. They go to make sure this is a legitimate threat, this is a legitimate possible demonic possession, and if the Warrens say it's not, then the church isn't going to dare mess with something that could be a hoax. And so they're kind of trying to get to know the family. It's around Christmas time. I was like, "Did Shane Black write this?" And they buy an Elvis record for him, and when they go to put the Elvis record on, and the turntable's not working. And as soon as Patrick Wilson, he looks over and he goes, "Is that a guitar?" And I was like, "Yes, motherfucker, he's gonna sing!" And he sings a couple Elvis tunes. And at first, actually just one, but he starts to play it off as a joke.
What, Love Me Tender?
Well, he does. What is it? Oh shit, I'm trying to remember now. Oh wait, he does this. Yeah, that's fucking. Why do fools fall in love, but I can't help. But he starts doing
falling in love.
But he does as a joke at first, which is a brilliant choice by him, because it makes everyone laugh. Because a lot of people are going, "Why the fuck is Ed Warren singing right now?" So he starts to go, "Thank you very much." He starts, and all the kids start laughing. But halfway through the song, it turns in this really tender moment where the kids get to smile for the first time, which is like so great. Like Ed Warren comes in, Patrick Wilson just makes these kids smile, even though they're being tortured by a fucking like the worst demon possible. And so again, that's why I'm like, that dude is Batman. And there's a great line where Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren are trapped on the other side, and she's having visions of his death. And you don't know what she thinks the last time he's going to see him, what's going to happen. And she's pounding on the door, and he's inside, and the girl is being tortured by this demon inside. And she's like, Ed, you can't go in there. You can't go any farther. And he's like, "I love you, babe, but I got to save that girl." And I was like, "It's fucking Batman." It's fucking Batman. But yeah, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and it's super creepy. They did thousands of cases. They can make Conjuring movies until Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga don't want to make them anymore. So I say bring on a third one. And it has the great font like they do in the first one. It's just like the big yellow font. It's like, it feels like 70s horror, which is the best compliment I can give it. So definitely check out both of them if you haven't seen any. And if you've seen the first, check out the second one. I think you'll enjoy it.
And then you also saw Independence Day Resurgence?
I did. I got off work earlier than I was expecting one night, and I was like, "No, there's a Independence Day starting in like 10 minutes. I'm gonna hop in there. There's still a seat open." Went in, watched it, and it too lived up to my expectations. based on the trailer, for better or for worse. I mean, it's a mindless popcorn, summer action flick. Roland Emmerich? Yes. Yeah. It's. I'd say it's better than the last couple movies that he's put out. But that's
take that 2012. Take that The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, that's low hanging fruit. So, but I mean, we just recorded a commentary for the first Independence Day,
which you'll hear soon.
Yes. I think it's the next one rolling out.
It is indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, so having watched that almost immediately before seeing the new one, I was like, kind of just want to watch the first one again, because true to form, the first one was better. But I think part of that was the nostalgia and the fact that it uses miniatures, whereas this one's almost entirely CGI. And the first one had Will Smith, which was definitely like a noted departure.
The Black Will Smith. Remember that from?
That's from Central Intelligence. Oh man, you're like a Black Will Smith. I don't. What does Kevin Hart say? He's like, I don't know if that's racist, but
or a compliment or what? But
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, The Rock says it. So.
Yeah, but so it's a good movie. A lot of people return in it. My biggest critique of it that's really stuck out in my mind, that even like was there, watching the movie, was that Jeff Goldblum's character, his father, comes back, and he's in this movie, and I'm like, that's fine, but during the course of the movie, he was one of the main characters. Like, I almost want to say that his character was bigger in this one than he was in the first one. And he has almost nothing to do with the main plot. Like, his entire plot is a road trip to get from the New York harbor. I think it's. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's New York. Yeah, because everything's happening in the Atlantic Ocean. So the New York harbor to Area 51. That is his entire story arc. And
is he just by himself whenever they cut to him in a car?
No. So he starts out in a boat, and the whole plot of this movie is that now a gigantic ship has landed on Earth, and it's messing up the tides and shit like that. It's really cool how as it's approaching, like, gravity gets all kinds of fucked, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's close to accurate. Like, maybe not as sensational
if it's dense enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
But like, yeah, so and also like their mode of transportation is like gravity drive, so it manipulates local gravity.
It basically moves space,
yeah,
instead of moving the object.
Exactly. So people and cars go flying. Like I said, it messes with the tides. So Grandpa, even though he's not a grandpa, but anyway, Grandpa is out on his boat in New York Harbor. One of them, one of the bodies of water around there, and a giant, tidal wave comes at him. So he's like, "Oh no!" and like kicks it into high gear to get back to mainland. And scene cuts right as a giant wave is cresting over him. So you're like, "Oh no, he's dead." What an emotional journey that Jeff Goldblum's character is going to go on in this movie. And then, like, a little while later, cut to a car full of, like 10-year-old kids. Driving through the desolation that used to be, like Staten Island or whatever, and they find Grandpa, like just dangling in his, like, strapped into his seat on his little dinghy, and they save him, and then all the the truckload or the carload of kids and Grandpa go driving to Nevada, and at one point they pick up a school bus full of children and never fill their gas tank. But yeah, so like his story arc had nothing to do with this with the movie, except like you got to see a little bit of what's going on in places that aren't affected by all of this, happening. Also, I feel like Roland Emmerich doesn't really know his geography of the United States actually just world geography in general, but because people go from like Tokyo to England very quickly, and then like Grandpa on his trip from from New York to Nevada with one never filling his gas tank, even though he's driving like an 80s station wagon first, and then a school bus later, and he seems to be able to do it in a day, which it's a lot faster than you can drive there.
Well,
but
shit.
yeah, but it's a very exciting movie. Liam Hemsworth does a great job. All the other people in it do. I didn't soak in many of their names. Vivica Fox comes back for like a quick 2 scenes, which that's more of an interesting role than Grandpa's return. And then Bill Pullman's back. He has a giant beard, and that's pretty cool. Brent Spiner. Oh, they explained how Brent Spiner is in the movie. So when he was melding with the alien in the first one, he's in it puts him into a coma for 18 years or 20 years, however long.
18 years. You got one of these kids for 18 years. It's Kanye.
Gotcha.
It's Gold Digger.
It always comes back to Kanye on this podcast. But yeah, so he's in a coma for 18 years and then gets woken up by the psychic connection that he still has lingering when the new ship approaches. All in all, though, I will say that it was a very fun movie.
Let's see. What have I got going on? Well, I saw a bunch of concerts this weekend. One with you.
Saw the Wheeze.
We saw the Wheeze. We saw Weezer and Panic at the Disco,
which was fun, man. Like I've had fun at every concert I've been to, but it was just fun. Like there was no bullshit
hit left unturned by the Wheeze.
The Wheeze, man. The Weezers.
They did all of Pinkerton.
Yeah,
they did some Pinkerton. Which is surprising.
They did the 2 songs we pretty much figured they would.
Yeah. No Tired of Sex though.
No, I mean that's just I don't know. I mean I love that song, but that I think you'd just be like in the middle of the song, you'd be like, what the fuck is that? Just naming all these girls. But he, first thing real quick, because there's other concerts Sam can get to, but like Panic's cool. Like I really only know their first 2 albums. I really know their first album because when that came out.
Oh yeah.
That really catchy.
Fever You Can't Sweat Out.
Yeah, and then Pretty Odd was cool because it was kind of like Beatles-esque, like they were kind of like
certainly
evolving.
That lead single.
Yeah, 9 in the Afternoon is my favorite Panic song.
Me too, yeah.
And they played that, which is really cool. I'm really glad they did. I figured they would because it's a big hit. But they played, like, I guess a lot of their new album, which I actually went back and listened to a little bit on Spotify afterwards. And it's really cool. Like, I mean,
I remember you turned to me after their show starter or show stopper, and you're like, they should have started the show with that.
Yeah, it's and tell me who's on mine. What the fuck is it called? Someone's screaming at the microphone right now.
Yeah, I feel like it was in every Madden game the year it came out.
Yeah, right. The start screen. Oh, dude, that's hilarious. Okay, whatever. Anyway, that was the song they ended with. Yeah, I remember that was like, dude, that the fucking seats go asses out of the seats. But Brandon Urie knows how to do a show. He's been doing this for like over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I remember I turned to Sam. I was like, you better take your shirt off, do a backflip, and he did it twice.
He only took his shirt off once.
Well, he only needed to take his shirt off once. Yeah. But really fun show. Like they were fantastic. They covered Bohemian Rhapsody, and I remember some people were like, "Oh, boo, fuck you," and it's like, dude, like. Why can't they play Bohemian Rhapsody? And they did a good job. Like, yeah,
it was a decent job in Bohemian. If you can play Bohemian Rhapsody, fucking play Bohemian Rhapsody.
And they did. I think they did a really good job with it. And then they finished, and that was cool. But then like the fucking Weezers were coming, and that's a band that's been in our collective minds for almost 20 years, and I had never seen them before. And so out comes Weezer playing the debut track off their the White Album, California Kids. Which that whole like I said, I told Sam, if they just played that whole album and a couple hits, I'd be fine because I think the new album is a fucking masterpiece. I love their new album so much, and but they had such a good job. For example, the second track they played was Hash Pipe. Like, so they're going back and forth. They're doing medleys, seamless medleys. I mean, like, all these guys know these songs so well. They've only had one other member.
The Blue Album's 22 years old now.
I know. And, they've only really switched members, just the bass players, but, in terms of that,
it's always ever the Spinal Tap position for Weezer is the bassist.
Yeah.
Though Scott's Schreiner has been the bassist since like 2002.
Yeah, he's been in the band. I mean, he's no longer. I mean, we were joking like he technically still is the newest member, but the dude's been in there for over a decade, and the dude kills it, man. So, and like I remember turning to Sam, and I was like, these guys are like if the Muppets were real. You know what I mean?
You
like,
turned to me and you were like, it's like if Iron Maiden were nerds.
Yeah. Well, like Brian Bell and Rivers Cuomo were like just like doing these dueling leads, and I was like, I've seen this before, but it's Iron Maiden. But you know, it was everything I wanted in a show. Like they didn't disappoint at all. It was so much fun. Like just singing as loud as I could. Like I usually don't sing that much at a concert, but it was so much damn fun. And it was just kind of this like wonderful dream, you know, like the perfect, like I've been waiting for years to hear Rivers say something to me, you know what I mean? Like, and the first thing he says is "Good morning," you know, to the crowd at like
for those
10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
yeah, and he's like "Good morning," and it was just like the funniest shit in the world. Like and then he's like, you know, "We are the Wees, your friendly neighborhood Wees," and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. That's like giving me goosebumps even thinking about it. Like it was the perfect introduction to this band I've been waiting almost 2 decades to see. Just having fun. I think one of the most surreal moments of my life, seeing anything that I enjoy, band, movie, whatever, was they come out for the encore and we're like, oh my god, how cool, they play Old Scorcher. You think they'll play Old Scorcher? I don't know, maybe down the line, whatever. But definitely Buddy Holly.
You and I were like, what are
Buddy Holly definitely.
They hit every single single except for Buddy Holly, sure.
Yeah, because they had played Say It Ain't So before. I figured that'd be the showstopper.
I was like, well, El Scorcho is a single.
Yeah, and I was like, that is, but like that's
off Pinkerton.
Yeah, and also the first line, like, so I remember he comes out and like Rivers is by himself and he's just like playing like an electric keyboard, and he just goes, "Hello again," and it's like Mr. Rogers, you know, he's just like this kind of soft spoken "hello again," and he's just playing, and you kind of like don't realize what he's playing, but you kind of do, and you're like, and everyone's laughing, and he's just this wonderful man playing "hello again," and he just goes, "God damn you half Japanese girls," and like it just goes right into El Scorcho, and it's just fucking beautiful. And the whole band comes in, and then Buddy Holly too. Like we knew that was the last song, and he just does this a cappella opening, and then the whole band just boom kicks in. It was a dream. It was wonderful. I loved every second of it. And I'm glad we made that choice to go see him. You know?
Yeah, it was great. It was kind of an impromptu thing.
Definitely.
Since my Ticketmaster vouchers didn't work for that show. But
it's always the show you want to go to that they don't work.
Yeah, well, they're also out for Black Sabbath for the end tour, and I was like, I can live with this. Because I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, fucking Black Sabbath's done. I was like, Black Sabbath has maybe 2 good albums. Maybe. That's me being generous. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, Weezer, Panic at the Disco on Friday, Broncho, which is this really cool indie rock band at the at DC9, which is on U Street. On Saturday night, it was a good kind of palate cleanser because it was a very kind of like mellow, kind of like Claxico, very kind of stripped down show. Their latest album, which you can stream on Spotify, is very mellow. If you're looking for just something to kind of like relax to in the background, it's perfect. And then yeah, on Sunday I did the all-day concert thing for DC 101, our local rock station's kerfuffle, and I saw Cold War Kids, I saw the Violent Femmes.
Where was that at?
That was at Merriweather Post Pavilion.
Oh, that's right. Okay. That was the first time you've ever been there?
That was the first time I've ever been to that venue. I saw Joywave, I saw Silver Sun Pickups, I saw Blink-182 for the 7th time, first time without their founding guitarist Tom DeLonge. Their current guitarist is the frontman for Alkaline Trio, Matt Skiba, and he kind of brings a heavier, more abrasive sound to it, but it's still the Blink-182 songs you all know and love. And they played a little more, some deep cuts actually. I was kind of happy about that, just kind of. But it was really cool. It was a full on weekend, but I was pretty exhausted by the end of this weekend. Just it takes a lot out of it, especially the all day shows where because it was fucking hot on Sunday, like it was a sun soaked weekend. But also, I mean, I just want to touch on this real quick. If you check for all you guys, we do a lot of stuff with Image. They've been very nice to us. And I started a column with them in their previews magazine, Image Plus. It's the column is called Comics Uncovered because none of the titles I came up with for the column were particularly good. So you could argue the column itself isn't particularly good. Read it. Let me know. Find out.
I bought one.
Yeah, it's an Image Plus number 3. So yeah, definitely check that out. Hopefully that'll be a recurring thing. And thanks again to all the Image folks. And thanks again, Ryan Nichols, for coming on our little show. Yeah. Be looking forward to seeing you again, and hopefully.
I feel like he's gonna be one of those guys like years from now. We'll be like, Ryan Nichols. We used to hang out with Ryan Nichols
because he does a lot. Yeah,
and he slept on our floor in a hotel room once in New York Comic Con.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Whatever,
the Ryan Nichols.
whatever, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Because he's doing a lot of stuff behind the camera now, like in terms of producing and directing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he's a man of many talents.
Well, Ryan, if you need an editor, that's what I went to school for. I should have said something while we had him here for the interview. He'll listen.
You got his Skype.
I do.
Yes, he will listen. He does listen to the show. He's a friend of ours, and he's always like, hey, this guy's really cool. And I was like, I know, we had him on the show. You just heard him.
But Sam, he is pretty cool.
Yeah. He is. Yeah. But yeah, man. So definitely check out that Kickstarter. We'll have the links in the description, so you have no excuse. God damn it.
Unless you're broke.
Yeah, in which case we appreciate your.
Then just share.
Share it.
Yeah, we appreciate your awareness, and thank you for listening to our show. Hopefully, you'll get through these tough times.
Yeah.
I did.
Go see The Conjuring 2. Take up the last of your money and go see that film.
Or Central Intelligence.
Yeah.
Because you probably need a laugh.
Or back that Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are you wasting your money on movies?
Yeah, the lowest possible donation's $1. Come on, you can do it. You get a personalized thank you, I think.
Yeah.
Check out.
You can do it.
You will
can
now.
do it.
You'll get a personalized thank you from Sam.
Yeah, Ryan.
Send him proof of purchase.
Yeah. Ryan, if you need me to enlist. But but yeah, no, definitely check out the Delta Anthology Kickstarter, available until July 27th. All those fine movies that Chris and Jake saw are fine and in movie theaters now, and
they're fine and they are movies.
Yeah, and then check out Image Plus #3 if you want to hear me gab on about comics in written form. So this has been another episode of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.